We know that many small and solo lawyers struggle with the business side of running a law firm, from consistent business development all the way to like technology efficiency. Well, today on GNGF Live, we are talking with Marshall Lichty, co-author of The Small Firm Roadmap, host of the JDHD Podcast, lawyer, entrepreneur, professor, and bear wrestler. I can't wait for that story. So welcome to GNGF Live, your bi-weekly Ask the Experts about all things law firm marketing and business growth. I'm Mark Homer, author of Online Law Practice Strategies and founder of Get Noticed, Get Found. As always, be sure to like and subscribe to our page, not just the video. We want to make sure you get updated when our next episode goes live. We do have moderators on the chat, so please ask questions, interact while we're live. If you're watching this in the future, after we're live, we do monitor the comments on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and we'll work to reach out to our guests to answer any follow-up questions you have. That's because we love you all, and we love getting to meet you in person. So come see us where we're going to be next. Let's see, I'm going to be in Omaha doing a CLE at the Omaha Bar Association on this Friday, actually, December 6th. I'm traveling soon. During the week of December 15th through 20th, I'm going to be speaking at the Law Firm Growth Virtual Summit. Join thousands of small and solo law firms from across the country. It's a web-based summit, so you don't have to travel, and you can jump in and out on the topics that matter to you and watch them anytime throughout the day. It's going to be awesome. Joe, make sure we get a link to that because definitely check that out. I think it's free to attend, so it's going to be a great summit. And finally, GNGF is proud to be joining 4 other great legal marketing agencies to put on our second Best Damn Legal Marketing Conference, or Bedlam 2020. It's going to be in Las Vegas this year, April 1st through 3rd. And depending on when you're watching this, the early bird pricing might still be available, so you can use code EARLYBIRD2020 and save $200. And that's at bedlamconference.com. If you aren't following our page, you may not have noticed that we started a new video series, and we call it GNGF Tips. So check it out on our YouTube page. Joe, if you have a link to that Your Blog Probably Sucks video, we got a lot of great feedback on that one, so maybe we'll throw that in the chat. Check it out. We drop a new video every other Friday. Now, let's get to our interview today. I'd like to welcome Marshall Lichty to GNGF Live. Marshall, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Great. Thanks for coming and by GNGF Live here. Really appreciate you taking the time.
You bet. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. So before we dive in, I know my audience is interested in this because I kind of mentioned it earlier, but you got to tell me this story someone told me that to ask you about how you saved a boy from a bear attack.
Yeah, so my first real job was as working at a Boy Scout camp. And for years and years, we'd seen black bears, but they were just sort of an ambient thing. One morning, I was running this camp. I heard this knock on my door, and I opened it's 5 o'clock in the morning or something. I opened the door in my boxer shorts, and I look down. There's this little kid. He looks up at me, "Marshall, a bear ate my friend." And that's,
what?
Come on, what? And because like I said, we'd seen them. And so I said, really, you just saw a bear? He's like, no, bear ate me. So in my boxer shorts, I sprint to this campsite, and it's the furthest one out. And I get there, and I come over this little berm to look out into the woods of northwest Wisconsin. And there is a bear, a black bear, and a plastic bag that he's kind of digging through. And then a man not too far away who is doing superhuman feats of strength. And I watched this man do a couple of these superhuman feats of strength, including throwing a log that shouldn't be thrown and a boulder. And eventually he hits this bear kind of in the side, and the bear saunters off into the woods. And I watch him go over to that bag and reach inside, and he pulled out a boy. And I'm down the hill, and we pull him up the hill, and we do some first aid on him. And I've got my paramedics that have since arrived, and we shipped him off to a local hospital about 30 minutes away. And he survived. He survived barely. I swear I did not even intend to do that. Survived, but missed a couple of key blood sources. And it was just absolutely incredible.
So he's okay. So now it's just a good story for how you wrestled a bear in your boxer shorts.
It is. I mean, the follow up is that he came back and worked for me the next summer, and he got Lyme's disease from a deer tick. So this kid's having a great time at Boy Scout camp. No, that's it. So he was done.
That's great. So you're a lawyer, Marshall, and you've worked at a big firm. You worked at a small firm. You run a law firm.
I have.
With all the technology changes going on. Like, what do you think the future holds? I mean, I hear all these stories about everybody being worried about robots taking over lawyers' jobs, but where are things headed?
Well, I mean, one thing that I think is certainly true is that technology and tools and the way that we do things are relatively finite. But the one thing that is infinite, that will always be true, is that we're here to hear stories. We're here to have problems solved. We're here to get help and be a part of a community. Lawyers are afraid of robots, in my experience working with them. And I got to tell you, there are a whole bunch of jobs that I hope robots take. Maybe tasks is a better word. I hope robots take a bunch of tasks, because right now lawyers think that their job includes a bunch of things that it really shouldn't. And
for example,
well, I mean, a great example is pretty much everything having to do with intake, right? I mean, there are very few reasons that a lawyer who gets paid, a very large sum of money for his or her time ought to be spending time doing data entry or templates for forms or getting things signed or scheduling meetings or answering the phone from people they're not sure whether or not they're a lead or a qualified lead or somebody who can actually buy their services. Those things are just way too either automatable or delegable for a lawyer to be doing them any more than with the most contacts that we have in the firm.
Yeah, it's actually interesting, because I think if you can take things away that are delegatable, that's usually the first thing. It's like, oh, I can get a person to do this. But it's not a bad idea to kind of say, if I can take it and be delegable, what's the next half a step is, can I automate some of this stuff?
Right. I think that's exactly true. And I heard a brilliant turn of phrase from a guy in California who's not a lawyer, but he has a sort of a high volume business. And he said something to me that it really resonated. He said, I try to automate the normal things and humanize the exceptions. What a brilliant conceptualization of what our jobs are, right? I mean, anything that is normal, you can't afford to be doing as the lawyer. You make too much money to do anything that could be automatable or delegable. And I love that, Mark. I think that's right on the button.
Yeah, and humanizing the exceptions. I mean, like the hard part of law lives in the exceptions, right?
That's right. That's what they're paying us for. If they could go to LegalZoom to get their thing done and feel comfortable about it,
right,
they would go to LegalZoom. But either they can't get it done at LegalZoom, or there's something about doing it through LegalZoom that they don't feel good about. And so it's in those spaces where lawyers actually provide the most value. And that's to take nothing away from LegalZoom. I think LegalZoom actually automates a whole bunch of things that we ought to be automating, right? If you make your business on starting companies and doing the 6 documents that are required to start a company in your jurisdiction, and you don't really add any other services, you are going to lose your job to a robot. And that's your opportunity, is to figure out what you offer other than the things that LegalZoom does.
Awesome. Another question I wanted to dive into, kind of following up on your experience running a law firm. So you've run a law firm, you've had to use marketing to drive growth. I've learned now that recently that you started teaching undergrad courses on marketing and innovation and stuff. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love it. I'm teaching a course this January actually on marketing communications for startups. And I actually think of most law firms as startups in many ways.
Right. And a lot of the marketing you would do it in that environment probably applies. So based on that experience, and now as a professor, how do you think lawyers are doing with marketing?
It's not good. I don't think this is news to you. One thing that's really interesting to me is most of the lawyers that I speak with, and this isn't true just of small and solo lawyers, it's true all the way up to the biggest firms in the country. Most of the lawyers that I speak with about marketing and sales talk to me about their referrals and word of mouth.
Right.
I don't have the data on it. I think Clio has done some of that. There is data out there about how many lawyers rely on those as their sole marketing and sales communications channels. And that is way too high. Whatever the number is, it's way too high, because that's not marketing. That's accidentally getting more work.
Yeah, we've talked about it. I think we both know, Maddie Martin over at Smith at AI, but I heard her once present that, referrals and word of mouth marketing is not a growth strategy. right? It's like you have to have other things if you want to have, especially if you're in the practice area that kind of needs new clients all the time because you don't have a lot of repeat business. You don't hope you have a repeat DUI client, right?
That's right. And you have built-in churn. It's the definition of many of our practices is
Mm-hmm.
that churn. And if you're not backfilling, then you are not guaranteeing anything about your growth or your stability in the future. You're relying on those referral sources to always continue coming through, or that word of mouth to remain good. And you're really sort of just casting your luck to the wind, which to me feels, very fraught.
Right. And I wanted to kind of follow up on that. Like, so you talk about the word of mouth marketing, and I think the Clio legal trends report that just came out had like 59% or something like that was referral, and 50 something percent was people that would never use a referral and only search on their own, and then some other in the middle, right? Some overlap.
Yep.
So it's about half, it's about 50-50. But if you dove into the data, they actually broke it out by demographic, and the amount of like people who are like 37 and under, or 35 and under, what it was, that were only searching was significantly higher, right?
Right.
So going forward, referrals actually look like it may be kind of, I don't want to say going away, because I think it's still word of mouth marketing. Referrals are very important. But if, the future of clients is going to be leaning more toward, I'm going to go look for stuff on my own and learn.
We're at peak referral. I don't think there's any doubt about that. We are at peak referral right now, or maybe a little bit ago. And that's for exactly the reasons that you say. The new wave of consumers are not looking to referrals first. Now, I think there's plenty of discussion to be had about basically the equivalent of a referral. And this is what you see in testimonials and videos and reviews and things like that, right? I mean, when I go to Amazon, I get a referral or a testimonial from somebody who has used the product or service that I'm looking to buy. But it's secondary, right? I do the search on my own, and then I look for confirmation from someone else, as opposed to, in the way that most lawyers market right now, getting the referral and then hoping that you have enough stuff in your toolbox to convince them that the referral was a strong and good one and that you can land the client.
Right. Yeah. Like we have a whole section. It's actually the first thing we do with any client, and we just call it protect your referrals. Right? I think it's the first third of our book or whatever. And it's the idea that even if you are given a referral, people, like you said, people go online to kind of like validate this. So you don't even have a chance to like prove that's a good referral. They're figuring that out online. And if you have bad reviews, they're just going to think their friend or family member's crazy. And they're already on Google, so they'll just find a new lawyer.
Just open a new tab or push back in the browser. I totally agree. And, I think even, if referrals are indeed your strategy and you're not going to do anything else, I would encourage folks to spend a little bit of time thinking about the experience of either being a lawyer who refers or being a person who has been referred to a lawyer, right? So for example, putting a landing page on your website for a lawyer who knows of you and is thinking about referring you.
Mm-hmm.
What if there is a landing page where they know to find you that just says, hey guys, thank you so much for thinking about me. I know some of you have been here before, and I just want to tell you, I am always going to protect this relationship. I appreciate you referring folks to me. Right down below, I've got a ton of contact information for where your client can come. And here's how I work. And, something like that helps a lawyer feel comfortable to make the referral, and that they know you're going to take care of their client. And then also a landing page for the clients who get referred, where you can have an introduction video, maybe you can have some testimonials built in, and you can really control that referral. I think even if that is going to be your strategy, there are little teeny tiny things that you can do to maximize that experience and make sure that folks are really finding what they find, and that they're finding the value that you have to provide, not accidentally, but very intentionally.
Yeah. In closing the circle, right? Like reaching back out and say, hey, thank you. This person became a client. We helped them out. I think they're really happy. I just can't get into details, but like just connect the dots that I got the referral and the good things happened. I really appreciate it. Anything you need, help in the future kind of thing. Like you mentioned earlier, like humanizing all these aspects.
I love it. I think it's the single most important thing that we can do as law firm brands and lawyer brands is controlling the experience that people have interacting with us. And if it is an experience of gratitude and, a streamlined, customized, intimate experience, people love that, right? I mean, Airbnb is built on that model. And Lexus is built on that model, and Apple, it's the experience with the brand. If I'm just getting from point A to point B, I don't need a Lexus. I buy a Lexus, and a
Right.
lot of it with the way you feel when you do business with Lexus. I'm assuming it feels cool, but like that, people.
So, I mean, it's funny you mentioned brands, and we could go on a tangent on this, but that was actually came out in the Clio Legal Trends report as well,
Right.
right? So that um, like consumers, especially like, and again, the demographic skewed younger for like large percent, but overall, the brand and the feeling of working with a law firm was very important.
Mhm.
In people looking for like a professional that can help them, right? Like they cared about the brand, and now brand I think was a very big word that we didn't really get into details of what that meant to people, and I'd like to see more in that in the future from Clio. But
Yep.
I'm assuming, like you said, it means what are other people saying about this? What's the feeling I get on the website? What is the process of working with this firm? Like in terms of like communication, or what are the little extra things they do along the
I
way?
love
Like,
that. And what we're really talking about there is essentially, maybe folks out there have heard about a customer journey map or
mhm.
customer experience work or, UX or whatever. There are a whole bunch of words for it, but really it's sitting in the shoes of your ideal customer and getting an understanding for what they need and how it feels to get it from you. And if you understand that and you know that intimately, and you can always work to refine it, even if it's just a little bit, you will continue to get better. And that experience is going to be so much better. And that is where you make that emotional connection with clients. You don't make it in solving the problem, recording the deed, litigating the case. You get it in delivering an emotional connection, an emotional feeling that they tie back to you and your brand. And that takes a lot of really hard work, and very little of it is actually lawyering.
Right. And people assume that you're going to do the basic job. It's how you deliver it that is the differentiator. If, and I always recommend like go look at the negative reviews for different lawyers, or go on Avo or Google and just see all the 1 star, 2 stars things. It's never they didn't solve my problem.
Right.
It's always they didn't call me back. Like I had no idea how the expectations were going to work in terms of pricing or billing and whatever. Everything seemed last minute. Like it's always the experience they have working with the law firm,
Yes.
not just the end result.
Absolutely. And just as a quick follow on, I was a volunteer, what they called investigator for the Lawyers Professional Responsibility Board in Minnesota. And same thing, right? When people send complaints to the board, it is not because somebody didn't win.
Right.
Very rarely is it like, I thought I was supposed to win and I didn't. It is they weren't diligent. They weren't communicating with me. They didn't return my phone calls. It's all of those things. And, those are the places, again, it's not about the lawyering. It's about the feeling of being lawyered. And if you can make that great, you have the world as your oyster.
So
And machines won't take that away, by the way, which I think, to bring it full circle,
correct.
machines aren't bringing that, machines cannot take that away. They can augment your ability to do it well, but they're not taking it over. That is all on you, and nobody's coming to save you.
Right. Like the human element,
Yep.
it's awesome. I wanted to mention this because you are the author of the Small Firm Roadmap,
You're the
and
guy.
you're one of the co-authors. Yeah, I bought the book.
You're the guy. All right. I've been looking for you.
So you're one of the co-authors with the lawyers team, and I mean the names on here, all people I love and respect as authors, and I've got a bunch of things dog-eared already to be able to talk about and write some blogs on. So thank you. But how does this book help lawyers kind of do some of the stuff we're talking about, build a better business and maybe a better life?
Sure. Mark, I think my experience as a lawyer was really a tale of two sides. Sometimes when I was lawyering, I was proud and happy to just be lawyering and to be delivering great service to clients and getting paid for it and making money. For me, there was always this nagging sense that the business that we were running wasn't running the way that businesses run. And I have a bunch of thinking about why it is that my firm didn't run that way, why I had a hard time running my firm that way, why other people I've seen have hard times running it that way, why even the biggest firms that I have ever talked to in Minneapolis and elsewhere have a hard time running like real businesses. And I don't know how far we want to go down that rabbit hole, but I think it's fair to say that we don't. right? Law firms and legal departments inside of companies and the county attorney's office and the state attorney general's office, those places have this built-in allergy to running like a business. And what I love about the small firm roadmap and about working with Aaron Street and Sam Glover and Stephanie Everett at Lawyerist is they understand that providing good legal services is table stakes. There are people out there who have that same nagging feeling that I did, that we have so much work to do on the running of the business part. And we wanted to put it together in a really approachable way. And that's what we did. So that is not a book about how to be a lawyer. That is a book about how to run a law firm. And I'm really, really proud of it. There are a bunch of elements in there that I think are just critical for people who want to be the runners of law firms to understand and care about and be curious about.
Yeah, definitely. Let's check this out. And I think we have a link. Joe, make sure we link in the chat for Small Firm Roadmap and where people can grab it, because it is great. I mean, like, this is not a little wimpy book either. I mean, it's a thick book, but it's guide, step by step. Like, hey, you start with like, what are your goals?
That's right.
Nobody even talks about that, right? Like, what are your goals? And then how we're going to, break it down and how do you approach these things? I thought it was interesting. And Mark Britton at a presentation at CleoCon mentioned lawyers will register for a business license, but then argue that they're not a business. So it's fascinating to me. Like that was one that just, was aha. It's like, yeah, you had, according to the state and the federal government, you are a business. But lawyers and law firms argue that no, we're a profession, we're different, we're not really a business.
That's right.
And it's like that until you figure that out and get that married, and like we're gonna have continued problems. So having resources like this is huge.
And I think that being a profession is great. That phrase and the ideas that swirl around it has never really resonated with me. I was never, I didn't come from a family of lawyers. I didn't have a grandfather who wore seersucker and did the things that the profession has always done. And so I never had a lot of connection to that phrase. But I don't think about it that way. And when I look at law firms, I look at businesses. I see business opportunities. So when I had my law firm, we represented startups and small companies in a variety of matters. And one of the things that I always saw companies do was they had a salesperson on the ground right now. And it was table stakes to have a salesperson, and the salesperson always needed a marketing person or ideally team to feed them things that they could go out and use to sell. And so you saw your marketing and sales departments build up almost immediately in the companies that we represented. And then we go look at law firms, ours included, and we'd look around and say, well, who does sales? Oh, well, the lawyers do. Okay. Do they do sales? What is sales? How do they do sales? Do they have any training or practice in doing sales? No. Okay. Well, so then it's just the marketing. Yeah. Okay. Well, what do you do for marketing? What's your marketing budget? How much do you spend on marketing? What are your marketing strategies? Who do you use for marketing? And what does your funnel look like so that when you market successfully, you end up closing on the deal? And like lawyers' eyes glaze over and they go back to like, well, I'm referrals and word of mouth. And we kind of have this circular energy around the idea that like we are allergic to sales and marketing, and that is just a huge missed opportunity.
And when you're running,
I'm not here to preach. I just it's strange to me. What an opportunity to understand, be curious about marketing and sales, and get out and get good at it.
Yeah. Well, the opportunity is huge, right? There's a massive, demand for services that aren't happening. Like people need lawyers, need legal services, and aren't getting them the way apparently they want to get them, because on the other side, we work with law firms all the time and say, we want more business, right? Like, Jack and the Clio team had that in the legal transport too, right? Talking a lot about that, but I mean, it's fascinating. But I want to make sure I talk about, because I heard a podcast where you were on with, I think, Megan Xavier. Yeah. And you talked about the JDHD podcast that you have going on and like that whole thing. So you're very passionate about this. I want to make sure you had a chance to talk about it because it's pretty interesting. I love the episode.
Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate it. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 42 years old. It followed on the heels of my son getting diagnosed, and it has been probably the single most important thing that's ever happened to me. Lawyers have this vast untapped resource sitting out there. And it's these lawyers with ADHD. There's a bunch of data out there about how folks with ADHD have incredible strengths in entrepreneurship and creativity and brainstorming and ideation and strategy and empathy and a whole bunch of things that we talk about in the book and elsewhere that folks like me and about 12.5% of the other lawyers in the country, which by the way is an astronomical number.
You said it's like 400% more than general population or something like that.
I think the data's a little squishy on this. The wide thinking is that about 4.4% of adults have ADHD. In a study in 2016, 12.5% of lawyers self-identified as having ADHD. Now, I haven't done a root cause analysis of that. We do some of that work on JDHD with the podcast and in the community. It's a consultancy where we help folks with ADHD understand it first, get some education about it, and then deliver on that unmet potential that they feel. It's the one thing that I always hear when I talk to lawyers with ADHD is they know that they aren't contributing in the ways that they could and want to. And that delta between what they are doing and what they know they can do is really, really challenging. And it's hard. And it's why a lot of folks with ADHD tend to have anxiety, why they have depression, why they have a bunch of other pathologies that really are consistent with our profession and that can really gut us when it comes to providing great service and doing the things that we recommend doing in the small firm roadmap. And so for me, that's how those things work together. Is the small firm roadmap requires that you put your own oxygen mask on first, right? If you're going to implement and understand what the small firm roadmap looks like, it's going to make you're going to have to be in a pretty special place to be there, to be curious about it, and to be ready to invest your time and your energy and your curiosity in making your firm look like a firm that we describe in there. For some lawyers, those with ADHD, who will do that implementation better than anybody on the planet once they've got their stuff sorted out, that's what JDHD is for. We're, like I said, a consultancy to help those folks get their oxygen mask on so that they can unleash that potential and start contributing in the ways that they know that they can. So that's the great promise. I think that they flow really well into each other. So what I do now as a profession is I help lawyers with ADHD, and then I help law firms and lawyers implement the kinds of things on the business side that we talk about in the small firm roadmap.
Got it. And you send me a link. So there's like a 10-day course or something like that. So Joe, we can make sure we get that in the chat for the 10-day. Right, is a 10-day email series or something like that, people?
There is. I'm in this weird phase of my life, right? I'm creating content about ADHD like crazy. And right now, the simplest way to get my best sort of early thinking about what ADHD is and how it impacts lawyers is to sign up for that course. You can get it at thejdhd.com/10-day-course. And it's a totally free 10-day email course that introduces you to ADHD, what it is, what it feels like if you have it, what it looks like if you don't have it, so you can see it in others. And then some of the things that you need to know about getting diagnosed, getting it treated. We talk a lot about medication because medication with ADHD is a interesting topic full of all kinds of myths and stigma and things. But that's kind of it.
If you even think or resonate, definitely check out that course. I found it interesting as an entrepreneur. Like there was things that resonated with me and some of the stuff you were talking about on that podcast. So yeah, definitely check it out.
Can I share a quick story with you, Mark, just because it validated everything that I've been working on for the last couple of months.
Yeah.
I talked to a guy who was referred to me from somebody else, and he said, I was diagnosed with ADHD as a kid, and I tried one drug and it didn't work. It was kind of a mess. And so my parents took me off of it. And I've lived for 30 some odd years as a lawyer with ADHD, or, as a person with ADHD completely untreated. And some of the things you talk about resonated in college. They for sure resonated in law school. And now they really hit me pretty hard in my law practice. He says, I just hope that you have some, thoughts or recommendations. And I said, well, if you only tried one medication, the single best thing that you can do right now is go back to a doctor and ask for the other kind of medication. And he went back, and I got an email from him the other day. He was about 12 hours into his experience of having ADHD medications, the right ones this time. And he's like, it's like putting on glasses for the first time. And that's it, man.
That's why you do it. Huh? That's awesome.
Yep.
And as I knew it happened, because I've got a couple other questions here I want to talk about, but we mentioned, I think when our 20-minute pre-call went 45, 50 minutes, right? So
Right.
I knew this probably would happen on the Facebook Live. But if you stick around, we'll do it. We can drop an extended cut in a couple of days. If you don't mind sticking around, answering a few more questions.
I don't mind at all. I can talk about this stuff all day, and especially with you, Mark.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. So I want to make sure, like, we talk about, you talked about some of the processes you have that if people can think about, like in your experience with marketing and stuff, they kind of follow some of these processes and different thoughts, they can improve their marketing success, right? And then the other thing,
the way I would say, the one thing that we haven't talked a lot about is this idea that I don't care how good you are. If you are selling the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time, you're not going to close the deal. Selling ice to Eskimos, that's a myth.
okay.
Right.
So we're going to hold on to that. We're going to come back to that. And I want to talk about this crazy thing you had about what lice has to do with marketing success. And I don't think I've ever used the word lice on my GNGF live show, but we're doing it now.
Gross.
Stay tuned with me, and we'll be right back to kind of dive into those details. Man, I can't wait to hear that. So thanks for joining us today, and be sure to like, subscribe to our video and to our page so you can make sure you get updated on our future GNGF Lives. We're going to keep going here in the GNGF studios. If you won't be with me at the Omaha Bar Association on Friday, then be sure to check out the extended interview with Marshall on this Friday, where we dive into his process on streamlining your marketing and learn what the heck lice has to do with your marketing success.
Hey, what's up? I'm Josh. Thanks so much for joining us. If you feel like you learned something today, think of how beneficial it would be to chat with myself or another one of our marketing consultants one-on-one. Go ahead and visit our website to schedule your free consultation. It only takes a minute.